Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Rikin Patel, and I've grown up here in Waterloo, where my parents have now lived for over 30 years. I'm currently a hospital-based pediatrician at the Scarborough Health Network, a community pediatrician at the Markham Kids Clinic, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Toronto. So thank you so much for inviting me here to speak at KW Vegfest this year. I think it's great that it's being done virtually so people can tune in from all over the world. So before I get started, I don't have any financial disclosures, conflicts of interest, or any sponsors. So today I'm going to speak to you about raising healthy children on a plant-based diet. I recognize that there are a variety of plant-based or vegetarian diets, but for today, I will specifically be referring to a vegan diet. We know that there are many benefits to a plant-based diet in adults, but now more than ever, it is becoming more relevant to our younger generation where pediatric obesity is an epidemic. A plant-based diet, I see, can serve as a critical and practical intervention to addressing obesity, where in turn we can address blood pressure issues, type 2 diabetes, lipid levels, future heart disease in this younger generation where all of these are on the rise. So raising a child based on a plant-based diet, I hope to share with you some information that can be useful to you and your loved ones. I've been really passionate about this topic since I adopted a plant-based diet 15 years ago when I was inspired by a group of friends to take up this lifestyle change as a form of compassion for animals. Initially as a vegetarian, this eventually evolved towards a complete plant-based diet. As a result of my yoga and meditation practice, funny enough. Now the clear health benefits of a plant-based diet are a wonderful bonus. So I wanted to just quickly share with you an image that I think is very relevant and tells us a lot. So for a lot of us who talk about our dietary choices and preferences, particularly plant-based choices, sometimes it can be challenging in work circles, friend circles. For me as a pediatrician who regularly talks about nutrition with my patients, I was really satisfied to see this article that was published in 2019 by the National Post, where it shows that Health Canada and the Canada Food Guidelines have taken a dramatic shift towards a plant-based diet. And for those of you that don't know, the major changes that have occurred are, first, they've removed both meat and dairy as specific sections or categories in the food guidelines. They have no longer allocated specific daily requirements or intakes for these two sources. And there's been a specific emphasis on a greater amount of a plant-based diet. So you can imagine that this comes at a very timely point, because we see that there's tremendous pressure from both the meat and the dairy industry. So for this to come about, I see this as a tremendously big victory. And we can see just from how this plate is designed that now half the plate is fruits and vegetables, and the other quarter is grains, and the other quarter being protein sources. So for many of the parents who have been vegans, they've definitely been asked this questions: how is my child getting their protein? Similarly, if you're a parent looking to have more plant-based options, you've also probably considered the question, how is my child where are they gonna get their protein from? So I just wanted to also just put up a slide with permission from one of the patients in my clinic whose mom is a vegan. And this is a growth chart that many of you may be aware of, but this is specifically from 0 to 24 months. And on the bottom line, we're showing the weight curve, and above is showing the length or the height curve. And we can see here that that this infant, who mom breastfed for the first 4 to 5 months, transitioned to a soy formula and has introduced just plant-based foods solely as a vegan. And I'm happy to say that as pediatricians, we provide a lot of direction, encouragement, and guidance to parents based on these growth curves, because it's an objective measure. So here we can see both on the bottom curve that the weight has been rising nicely, and then the length is also been trending appropriately. So this child is very healthy and doing well. So so today what I'm going to be sharing are specific key points around specific nutrients, minerals, vitamins that come into question for plant-based diets, and specific details on how to approach them for infants and children. I'll also be touching upon very briefly for vegan moms who are looking to breastfeed, and milk alternatives for infants. So let's start with the protein myth. Can you get enough? Absolutely. It is important, though, to recognize that plant protein has lower digestibility than animal protein. So it's recommended that plant protein based diets require about 15 to 30%, depending on the age, more protein compared to non-vegetarians. The other really important point to remember is that the amount of essential amino acids, which are building blocks for proteins that are not produced by our body, vary in amounts in different types of plant protein. So the take-home message is that we need a variety of plant-based proteins to complement each other. And this can be done through lentils, whole grain breads, pumpkin seeds, a variety of nut butters, and even soy. So what about the iron question? We do recognize that iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency in children. And iron is really important, not only for the initial infant growth in the first 2 years, but also for early brain development. And it is also critical in older children for red blood cell formation and ensuring proper transport of oxygen to different parts of the body. And this would be particularly relevant in our active children, especially those that are athletes. And that is why every company that makes food for infants and children fortify with iron, and that can be seen through iron fortified cereals, grain products, and dried beans, peas, of that sort. But the really important thing to remember for vegans is that the iron in plant-based proteins is a non-heme iron, and the iron that's absorbed by the body is typically a heme iron. So the really important thing to remember is for those of us on a plant-based diet is that it needs to be complemented with vitamin C, which is a cofactor that takes non-heme iron and converts it into a heme iron, which the gut can easily absorb. So the research shows that vitamin C taken at regular intervals in the day through our diet helps increase the absorption by iron by 4 times. So for example, that bowl of chili that you're having at dinner will have hopefully have some tomatoes and bell peppers, and the vitamin C in those foods will help absorb the iron in the beans and the legumes. So the take-home point for iron in vegans is that you can definitely get enough in the diet. Research does show that plant-based diet require 1.5 times more iron than non-vegetarians due to its availability in the body. And the way we address that specifically is how we take that iron. And so it's important to take adequate amounts of vitamin C to increase the absorption of that iron. Next is B12. B12 definitely is a risk for deficiency in vegans because it is mainly found in animal products such as dairy, eggs, and meat. B12 is so important for our body because it maintains healthy nerve tissues. It's important for early brain development and red blood cell production. Some of the ways that you may see low B12 manifest in children is that you can have poor growth, which can be seen from the growth curves, delayed gross motor development, or even regression of milestones, and even anemia. So the take-home point for vitamin B12 is that 3 servings of vitamin B-rich foods are recommended every day to be included in the diet. And this comes through fortified foods, such as fortified cereals, juices, unsweetened soy milk, and even tofu and tempeh. And if that's not possible, it is very important to supplement B12. The suggested amount is 5 to 10 micrograms. So in the circle that I'm in, we say 5 to 10 micrograms per day keeps away neuromuscular delay. So what about omega-3s and fatty acids? So these are really important for eye, brain, and nerve development. And we do know that in vegan diets, that they can be deficient in long-chain omega-3s, specifically DHA and EPA, which are predominantly found in seafood and eggs. And so therefore, if a vegan is not having a lot of sea vegetables or algae, they can be deficient in these. So the strong recommendation is that precursors for DHA and EPA, which is linolenic acid, are consumed. And this is found in flaxseed oils, canola oils, walnuts, and soy products to vegan children to help as the precursors for these omega-3 fatty acids. Other things to consider is supplements such as DHA algae-based oils. The important thing to note with omega-3s is that there's no dietary reference intake range. Another common question that I get is, if I don't eat dairy, how do I get my calcium? So for strict vegans, this is a risk for having low calcium, but we have many great vegetables such as broccoli, leafy greens, low oxalate greens such as bok choy, Chinese cabbage, kale, and collards that are all really high in bioavailable calcium for absorption. The other part of calcium is vitamin D. Vitamin D is required for proper calcium absorption and to maintain healthy bones. So similar to iron, vitamin D is fortified in many foods. But if you're not able to get it through the fortified foods in our diet, we do recommend taking a vitamin D2, which is ergocalciferol, as a supplement. And generally, as most of you know, in Canada, we have long winters and generally not as much sunshine as we need. So vitamin D supplementation is an important consideration for everyone. Now I'll just touch upon breastfeeding moms who are vegans. It's really important for vegan moms who want to breastfeed to make sure they're taking adequate amounts of vitamin D, B12, and iron. Specifically, if this is not able to be maintained through a diet, it will be important to supplement these 3 things specifically. And especially for vitamin D, if the recommendation is for lactating moms and pregnant moms to take up to 2,000 international units a day of vitamin D through the winter months to maintain adequate levels. In light of the significant role of the essential fatty acids for brain and eye development, it is also recommended that breastfeeding moms consider taking linoleic acid, as we mentioned, through flaxseed, soybean, canola oils to have good levels of DHA. And if not, it can be done through supplementation. So a common question that I get asked by moms who have been breastfeeding is, what formula do I transition to, and possible milk alternatives? So just to highlight that, we see here that for vegan moms, you can breastfeed as long as you want, and that's definitely recommended by any pediatrician. But if you're going to switch to a formula, a soy formula is best for children up to the age of 2, then choosing an appropriate milk alternative. And what's important now to note is soy milk is the best choice because first, it has the closest number of calories to whole milk. And as you can see from the bottom, it also has the highest protein content compared to the other nut milks. So as you know, almond milk can be quite a trendy choice for an altered milk, but unfortunately it's very low in protein and it is also very low in calories. For example, if breast milk had 20 calories per ounce, almond milk only has 7 calories per ounce. So I wanted to end just by sharing some really interesting research that is coming about for plant-based diets. It's well recognized in children today, parents are struggling with children's behavior, poor focus, and mental health issues that are only just growing. There's a strong recognition now that the gut has its unique nervous system that communicates with the brain. And there's a lot of research going into the gut microbiome and its potential impact on cognition, mental health, and behavior. So there's a growing interest now to determine whether a plant-based diet, by altering the gut microbiome, could potentially have a positive impact on improving behavior, increasing focus, and even playing a role in addressing mood and anxiety in children today. Right now, most of the research is in adults, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in the types of studies that are done, improving the quality of the study as well as the patient populations. So just to summarize, a well-balanced diet can definitely provide the needs of growing infants, children, and adolescents. And this is supported not only by the Health Canada, the Canada Food Guidelines, but by the American and Canadian Dietitians Association, as well as the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Canadian Pediatric Society. So I do want to recommend that if you're considering making this transition, that it is really important to do this in collaboration with both an informed physician and a registered dietitian, so that not only are you making the right food choices, but you're also monitoring the different micronutrients, vitamins in the body, so that adjustments can also be made. And this is how we have it set up in our office as a team. So if you're interested in making this transition for your child, we'd be happy to talk to you about it. If you're in the Toronto area, pop into the office. And if not, we're happy to do this as a virtual consult from pretty much anywhere in Ontario or across Canada over the Ontario Telehealth Network. So I wanted to thank you very much for having me today. I hope you took something out of this, and we look forward to seeing you at the health panel to hopefully answer any of your questions. Thank you so much.